Hello, hello, hello. Hello and welcome to another day in paradise. And welcome to another edition of the Unapologetic Negropian. In today's video, I promise you I had an hour and a half to get myself ready for this. And I'm not quite ready, so give me one moment. Okie dokie, and there we go. That's better. I'm hoping all you guys can hear me. Okay, give me 1 second. Yeah. Give me 1 second, Gail. Hello. And sorry about this, guys. Give me a moment. Okay, sorry about that. Hello and welcome to another day in paradise, and welcome to another edition of the Unapologetic Negropian. In today's video, first of all, I want to ask you guys, can you hear me loud and clear? Yes, I can see you. I can see you, sir. I'm going to introduce you right now. I see you. So, in today's video, we are going to talk a little bit about the young lady that you see behind me, Patrisse Cullors, one of the former founders of the Black Lives Matter movement. So we're going to speak about her, and more importantly, we're going to talk about the fiasco that she's got herself into regarding the amount of money that she's been spending on houses, where she's been buying houses, and how it's not really a good look. I'm going to give you my opinion on it, but more importantly, I've got a former organizer for Black Lives Matter in New York, gentleman by the name of Sumumba Subukwe, and he's been here before. I had an interview with him last year, and that was great. It was good to hear about his time in the Black Lives Matter movement. Right now, we're going to cover it again a little bit because we have to. Because what on earth is going on? I'm going to give you my opinion because I don't think it's going to be exactly what you might be expecting. For you guys that have been living under a rock, for you guys that have been living under, oh yeah, okay, there's no echo anymore, is there though? Not anymore, right? Should be loud and clear now. So anyway, for most of you guys that have been living under a rock, I'll just give you a little insight into what has happened over the last week. So goodness, I'm a bit lost now. Goodness. So the lady you see behind me, that is Patrisse Cullors. She's one of the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, and it has come about now that she has gone out and had a spending spree and bought some houses. And the right-wing media are now having a feast with it, okay? Because she called herself an ultra-communist, a Marxist, which is like ultra-communism, right? So she's put her foot in it, really, because she's essentially, the right-wing media in America have essentially taught people that you shouldn't be leading such a lavish lifestyle. Okay, fantastic. I'm glad that you guys are here, by the way. I'm going to say hello to you in a few moments. So she's bought a few houses, and everything is in uproar for some reason, which I think is total garbage. There's no reason for it, if I need to be honest with you. I'm going to give you my opinion right now. But first, I'm going to bring into the conversation right now, I'm going to bring in my guest, and that is Sumumba Subukwe, who's been patiently waiting for me in the
Hey, everyone.
room. Hello, Sumumba.
Hello. How you doing?
Oh dear, I can't hear you.
You can't hear
And I
me?
think it's not your fault though, Sumumba. It's not your fault, it's my fault. Give me one moment.
No problem.
Give me one moment. I'll be right back. Give me one moment. Sumumba,
Yes.
can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
I can hear you loud and clear. I had to put these on.
Hey. Okay.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, brother. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. I've been a
Even though
little bit
we've talked,
busy, so
continue to stay in touch.
yeah. It's good to see you anyway.
Yeah.
And how's life been treating you?
Um, Pretty good. Pretty good at this point. Yeah, a lot of good things are happening right now, and I'm on a 30-day ban from Facebook, which is something maybe we could talk about later. Um, But right after I get out of that ban on the May the 11th, I'm gonna be launching my own business or continuing the business that I've started. I'm gonna launch it on May 19th, Malcolm X's birthday. So that's the long and short of that. And so things are very much looking up. I'm sitting at my old home that I had a house fire in about a year ago. I'm sitting on the back porch because I wanted to get somewhere where it was
Oh,
nice, and quiet. Yeah. Long story short, they're working on it
mm,
now, but I don't know if I'm moving back in or not. So that's a whole nother live
oh.
stream though. But it's all good.
I'm guessing you'd prefer for them to just, give you a new place. Why not? Give you a new.
Yes, yes. I am searching for my own place. I had a room and I've shared it with the house with other people, but yeah, I mean, I'm looking for my own place, and things are very much looking up. Spring is here. COVID is down a bit, and I know you're not really for vaccines, but I am vaccinated. But I still wear 2 masks, and I don't take no chances, regardless.
That's
Yeah,
good, man. That's
this is a
all
tight
good. That's
city.
all
Too many
good.
people live here. Yeah, yeah,
I know it's very small, and for those people that have had respiratory problems, or yeah, I don't think that there's a problem with the vaccine. Okay, I think there's a problem with people forcing the vaccine on you. That's
okay,
where I have my problem. If you want to take the vaccine, fine, go ahead, but don't
right,
try and force people to take it, because there's a lot of healthy people out there. There's a lot of people out there who are immune to it. You know,
right, right.
why do they need to take a vaccine? But once again, that's
Yeah,
for another day. We'll
yeah,
get into that.
yeah.
But today, of course, I wanted to speak with you about Patrisse Cullors.
Okay.
I saw that smile there.
How long is this
I
stream?
saw
How
that
much
smile.
time
What's
we got?
going on?
Well, Okay, I don't like to start out with disclaimers, but I must say this that I'm in New York City, and when Black Lives Matter started, technically was around 2015, really, that hit our city, 2014, 2015, after the murder of Eric Garner. Before that, it
Mhm.
was the brother Trayvon Martin, I think 2012. But we had a local case of a brother here that doesn't live too far from where I'm sitting right now in the Bronx, named Ramali Graham. A lot of people don't know about. Was an 18-year-old young man that was killed. Basically, the cops went into his house. They couldn't get in the front door, so somebody let him in the back, and they came upstairs and they
Wow.
shot him through the door for some weed, or some, allegedly for some weed. And a lot of people don't know about that. So anyway, our introduction to Black Lives Matter before it was a name was 2012, and I did it. I was organizing through the Occupy movement. And if we fast
Yeah.
forward that,
Yeah.
yeah, which was the
Mm-hmm.
thrust of my work. But we covered a lot of areas. Black Lives Matter, police brutality was one. And I'm happy to say that I was part of a movement, a citywide movement that reduced stop and frisk. You haven't heard about a whole lot of police killings of black people in New York, in part because of that. Um, but I will say that
Oh.
the thing, yeah, the thing that I can give everyone a good um, insight on is when it started in New York City, and it's like that. A lot of that, it's kind of like this now as well. It's a BLM is a decentralized movement. They don't have a headquarters per se. They don't have
Mm-hmm.
like a central headquarters. They don't have. I don't. I think some of the chapters may have tax exempt status, but for the most part, it's not like a centralized movement. Neither was Occupy Wall Street. But when it started, I remember talking to one activist, fellow activist, who I fell out with a little bit later, which is a whole nother story. But he told me that the people that get the money in BLM were the three founders. I think it's Alicia Garza, Patrisse. I can never pronounce her name, and I can't remember the other
Mm-hmm.
one's name. Well, what happened was, in terms of the funding,
Patricia. Yeah.
Patrisse and there's another one as well, and they all part of the
Yeah. Yeah.
LGBTQ community, which is a lot of people had a problem with that as well, and that they're women. But the money that most of the money that BLM was getting in the beginning and kind of going forward was going to those three individuals, and they started fighting over that money.
Mm-hmm.
It was being given to them not by people like Soros, even though he may have contributed, but it was individuals that they were getting money sent to them. Okay, um, and they started fighting over the money. They was always like fighting over the money. How would they get money? They wouldn't get money through just donations, like you send in money, because there's really was nowhere to send it into. But they would get money in terms of media appearances, in terms of speaking engagements. I think one of them has a book deal, other sort of speaking appearances as well. And they used to fight over that or position themselves to get the money. That's where a lot of the fighting came from, and that's where a lot of the money went to. So BLM is a decentralized movement. It's not like it just goes to one office and they take all the money. So if you build a social media profile, even more than community organizing, you'll get funded. There's also a guy named, I think, D. Ray Davis or Del Ray Davis. I think that's his name. Del Ray McKisson, I think, which is like a Sean King type of character, social media character, that also was getting the money. Anybody that said they were BLM was getting money, and it's usually through GoFundMe's, PayPal's, Cash App, stuff like that. So that's what I wanted to say about that. And that it's kind of problematic that she's getting this money and buying houses, and I didn't know she called herself a ultra communist, which is kind of a contradiction if you're doing all this. So that's what I understand
Mm-hmm.
about the movement. And let me tell you, I can tell you because I was around it for a while, that
Yeah.
we weren't getting a lot of money. The people in New York City, the BLM in New York City was mostly people that used to go to Grand Central and do protests in there or demonstrations inside of Grand Central Terminal on 42nd Street. Now they would get people that would walk by and give them money, stuff like that. We had the same thing with Occupy Wall Street when we were in the park. People would come by, drop money, stuff like that. But it wasn't like Soros and all of them was sending us money. I can tell you that for sure. There's people like Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they were big supporters of the movement. Alec Baldwin, others were supportive of the movement. Now, it's not beyond the pale that celebrities would donate to Black Lives Matter, but because there was no centralized office, a lot of times the money would go straight to these three individuals. And I would like to say that even though I don't agree with everything, I think I lost you. Okay.
Hello, guys. Sorry about that.
Okay. Um,
Okay, you're back.
so,
Sorry
so
about that.
yeah, it's okay. So, you know, activists should get paid. I mean, trust me, I know I worked myself right into a homeless shelter working for the movement, in like 5 years of organizing. I worked myself into the shelter and I had to work myself out of the shelter. So I don't have a problem with them getting money, but where does that money go? I don't know if it should be going to luxury items like that. It's one thing if you go out and speak somewhere and you get paid for that. It's another thing if you're getting money in the name of Black Lives Matter, and then you're using that money for your personal thing. If you want to earn it, you should earn it from your own talents, not just using the name Black Lives Matter. So that's the way that I understand it, and I know for sure that there's a lot of
Yeah,
organizers like me that weren't getting money from
the
Soros
thing
and what
is,
people think. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Do you know what I think? I watched an interview with her and this other gentleman. I forgot his name now. Black guy, African American guy. I watched that interview. She went into it quite well, actually. She started talking about the money she makes apart from BLM. So she started talking about the fact that she was a college professor. She was talking about
exactly
the book deal she did and everything else, right?
Right.
And that is her money.
Right.
That is her money, which is not a problem. But when she started, I think it becomes a problem when you see these guys going on TV and using the movement as like I don't know, using the movement
to come up,
give themselves more exposure, which will in turn to come up. That can be problematic because there are going to be plenty of people out there who are going to say that these three women who have probably experienced something like these three women, and the three women from the LGBTQ community, they have probably experienced some bad stuff, but they haven't experienced. It's highly unlikely that they've experienced police brutality. Okay, the three ladies that run BLM, it's highly unlikely. I know that one of their brothers, this Patrisse, her brother was he shot or something by police? Something like that anyway. So I don't know, is that enough to justify, hey, I'm going to give myself a fat salary? I think every penny from the BLM movement should go towards the people who it has affected. I truly believe that. But I've taken a look at what they've been spending it on, what they have spent this donated money on, helping to get governors into office across the nation that sort of side with them, spending money on their campaigns. I'm like, yo, come on now. We don't need to give. I just look at things a different way. I don't think that. I think that no matter what politician you stick into office, things are not going to go your way. Children are still going to get shot. We're still going to have the same problems that we have always had. I mean, look at the amount of money that they've spent, and they've got Joe into office, and they've got him in as the president. You know, they've helped, and what has he done for us? He's done more, arguably. He's done more for Asians in the last month who have experienced in the last month what we've experienced for the last 400 years. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, you know.
Well, I like to speak on that.
That's when it becomes problematic.
I hear you.
When you are wasting your money.
Right. Well, let me just say this. I think, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I don't feel like we have permanent friends in either party, just permanent interests. And I would like to say that maybe Joe Biden, Donald Trump is like a straight white nationalist, supremacist, racist. And I would say about Biden, he's probably a soft nationalist, soft white nationalist. Because if you believe in this entity that's called the United States, then that makes you a nationalist, a white nationalist. But beyond that, I'd like to say that the fact that they got those two senators in Georgia into office has been helpful to poor Black folks and working class Black folks in terms of the stimulus checks, in terms of funding for the cities. They were about to shut down like subway service to a large extent in New York City, and that affects poor people and working class people because we weren't getting funded because there was no taxes. Not a lot of taxes were coming in because of coronavirus. He also extended the PPP loan, which if you do gig work like myself, you can get a PPP loan, which is forgivable. If you're an entrepreneur, you can get PPP loan, which is forgivable. And that helps Black entrepreneurs indirectly. Also with healthcare, which is really popular, Obamacare, for lack of a better term, which is popular with the people. It's not like socialized, one single payer or whatever, socialized medicine, but it's better than what we had. Without Biden in office and without those two people being elected, we wouldn't have that. So on one extent, those things are good because people are really struggling out here, particularly our people, other poor people. So I like that fact. But at the end of the day, we're going to continue to be killed and brutalized because it's not a question of even training. It's not a question of even just having more necessarily Blacks on the force, which will be helpful, police force, but it's a question of the community having control over the police. And I think I lost you again. I don't know if people can still hear me, but I see somebody say she got paid $191,000 for some jail reform. Okay, that's a lot of money. I don't know if there's been an audit done about that, but getting that type of money, really we got to ask questions. Where does that money go? Where does that money go? That's beyond just speaking fees and stuff like that. So it says that. So anyway, so no one is under any illusions about the Democrats or the Republicans, but all politics are local, and there are some things that you have a better shot at if you have a Democrat in office. Without Biden winning, we wouldn't have got the stimulus checks, we wouldn't have got the PPP loans. A lot of cities and programs would not have gotten bailed out. So I don't know if you can understand this unless you're a poor person, a working class person that's affected by these programs, including transportation and other things. So, we got to take what we can get from that, but we got to take the demands to be higher. We need to have community control of the police, not just better police training. That officer that killed the young brother in Minnesota was on the force for over 20 years. And she went through the training, special training, after Philando Castile was killed in 2016. But she still mistake a taser for a gun. So yeah, I hear what everyone's saying about Democrats and Republicans, but at the same time, until we get power, until we focus on power, we got to take what we can get from either one. You know, um, and if you say Warren wasn't a win for us, well, I guess you don't need that stimulus check. You don't need the PPP loan for assistance if you're a black entrepreneur. You don't need health care. Those issues don't affect you. You don't need certain social programs that affect black people at the grassroots level. So, maybe you can survive that. Maybe you can survive without those things. But if the coronavirus has cut out a lot of jobs as well. So, like I say, it is not the end game to vote for them and keep them in power, but we got to take what we can get from them. So that's very, very important. Maybe you're not affected. Maybe you don't have a elder that's in senior care. Maybe you don't have know someone that's affected by federal social program, in which I will say that they are not the solution, the total solution to our people. But it is a lifeline for a lot of people. So it's easy to say that if you're not affected by what's happening at the grassroots level. And you definitely shouldn't apply or take a stimulus check or PPP loan if you really feel that way about, you know, politics. So, it's just a game, and we got to use it to our advantage until we get to a point where we have our own. So I think the emphasis and the problem I have with BLM is that it should be Black Power Matters, which is a whole nother issue. I'm a very strategic person, a very pragmatic person, and I see things from the bottom and the middle because that's where I am. I wish that I could say that I was unaffected and I had $1 million and it wouldn't really matter whether Biden or Trump won. Or I could be like Dynasty Mir and be like, let's vote for Trump because there's more money in it for me. But that's a whole nother issue. But yeah, until we can create our own power, real power, and not just putting up the black fist, like we got to use the political system to our advantage. But we got to also understand it's not the end game. But go ahead.
I'm going to tell you the way I feel about it. Okay? I just have a feeling that we've gone down this road before. We've been down this road.
Yes.
We kind of know that it doesn't work. So part of me believes that we need to take a look around the world, take a look at the people around the world and see what they did, because we weren't the only people that were in this situation, okay? We weren't the only people that subjugated and in bondage. There were other people as well. And these people, I think, like the Indians and the Chinese, they had a bit
Cubans,
more... Yeah. Sorry?
The Cubans,
India. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm talking about, yeah, because the Cubans were more, well, they were more of African origin, weren't they? A lot of them were of African origin.
I hear what you're saying. I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, but I'm saying that if you look at them, and if you look at the way they are culturally, the way they, it's difficult to see the way they gel together. There's a Chinatown. Is there a Chinatown in New York? There is a Chinatown in New York.
Yeah, there is. Canal Street. I don't know if it's called Chinatown formally, but yeah. And I grew up in San Francisco, California, and we had a big one down there, and the Koreatown as well. Yeah. I think Koreatown is in LA. Exactly. You're right. Culture is so important.
In LA. They use that to stick together to the point in which the opinions, the views, the feelings of everybody else who is not of their culture is completely irrelevant to them. They don't care. They don't care what you think. That's just the way they are. And it empowers them. All of a sudden, you're not going to see them coming out saying, hey, we care, we matter. They know they matter. They don't have to put on the banners that Koreans matter. They know it. They don't need, and because they know it, they don't need to tell other people as well that it matters. Because once again, they don't care what you think. It doesn't matter whether you think we care or not. So I think we need to start trying to adopt some of that thinking. You understand? Adopt some of that, focusing on ourselves You know,
Absolutely.
putting money
Yes.
into. I'm not saying that we should be totally like what Malcolm X said and be, totally separate from them. But we need to start to focus more on programs which tie us more. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but a lot more programs that tie us more to the African continent, that teach us about the African continent. That should be for every African American child, they should all get African history. Every single one. It should be absolutely not necessary, but it should be, what do you mean? It should be the standard in every school, every African American school child's education. Why are you learning about the 400 years in the United States for? When the United States, yeah, I mean, barely
Right.
been
Can
around
I interject right quick? Because I definitely agree with you. I've been
uh,
wanting to talk to you about this, but I'm still formulating what I want to do with that. But let me say this: it's so crucial that you said that, and every Saturday I'm always trying to get you to watch In Class with Dr. Carr. Well, they have a social media platform. They created or helped to create a social media platform called Narrative. I just put it in the chat, and it's teaching about African American history, and it has a book club. It has videos. It's a whole social media site called Narrative with a K, narrative.com. And I signed up. I think you can sign up for 150 per year, or you can get the free membership where you don't have as much access. But I think, we really have to talk about the importance of social media and us using our own platforms. I've heard you speak about us not. Okay, I'm back on the show. I was just typing that. Sorry, it's not on my end. But for y'all that can hear and see me, yeah. So I've signed up. Okay. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
just
I'm
put.
back. So
Okay, I put in the chat Google Narrative. I put on my community board every Saturday for us to check out the show In Class with Dr. Carr, Karen Hunter, and Dr. Carr, because it teaches us our history. And I'm so glad you mentioned culture, because culture means cultivated behavior, if when you really break it down. And I think that one of our emphasis should be not on getting these people to say Black Lives Matter, but to really make Black Lives Matter. And how we do that is through education, controlling our institutions, starting with, but not limited to, our schools. We should have
mhm.
African history and African American history, world history taught to our children in our schools. We should be in power and control of of who's hired and who's fired in our schools. That was an
Mhm.
emphasis in the '60s, the late '60s. Ocean Hill, Brownsville
Mhm.
Project. People Google that, of the Black Power movement, the later stages of Black Power movement. Control our schools, control everything in our community, so we can get for lack of a better term, the immigrant mentality towards our people. And we do need to be a monolith when it comes to most central things. We do need to have unity. So I totally agree with you. But here's the problem with that. The only problem with that in America, and I think other places, is that we have such a colonized mindset. We are not looking to destroy white supremacy or Western notions of life. We are really just trying to, a lot of us, not all, but too many of us are trying to fit in and trying to find a way to get a nice house, to get these things, which nothing wrong with that. So that's one of the problems that we have to take upon ourselves. Very, very important. And as I mentioned to you before, I don't know if you've had a chance to see it yet, but exterminate all the brutes is an
Yeah,
excellent. It really
yeah.
breaks it down. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but that's fundamental education or re-education for the people. Go ahead.
Did you watch it? Did you watch it?
Yes, I did. All 4 parts. Oh man, it's a masterpiece.
Wow.
It is a masterpiece. I have HBO Max, but there's other ways to get it, the torrent and stuff like that. As you said,
I'm going to download it. I don't have that, but I can easily download it. I'm not sure if you guys have the ability to download it, but if you can download it, what is it? What's the name of the?
It's Exterminate All the Brutes. It's based on a book that I think a Swedish guy wrote a book called Exterminate All the Brutes, and I think he was talking about I think he was talking about from the Native Americans to the Africans, and the brother Raoul Peck, who did a movie on James Baldwin called I Am Not Your Negro, and also a really good one on Patrisse Lumumba in the Congo, directed it. And I have it in my community page for you guys to check out the preview. And I'm just kind of shocked that HBO produced this. They're not really putting it out there and advertising it, but that's some really good way for us to kind of start that. But how do we get to this point where we didn't all come from the same tribes when we were brought here or dropped off in Jamaica or Dominican Republic? We came from different tribes, but when we got here, we had to kind of work together in the beginning, and we had to, in some cases, escape, like the Maroons. I mean, you know about the Maroons and the people in Palmares in Brazil,
of course.
and the Black Seminoles that fought with that. So anyway, that's covered also in Exterminate All the Brutes. So I definitely feel what you're saying, because Black Lives Matter. They got to matter to us. And these people are not these people, and I'm not trying to make a racist statement, a bigoted statement, but they're not going to change. As long as they have power, they're going to have these brutes in the police force. I said, I think when we lost connection, that the lady, the cop that shot the young man in Minnesota, she was on the force for 20 plus years. And if y'all remember, 5 years ago, Philando Castile was killed, and he was reaching to show him his ID in Minnesota, and they did this years round training of officers, and she was part of that, and she still somehow mistook a taser for a gun. So as long as these people are in power, they're going to keep doing that. They go to trainings all the time, but they still have these bigoted ideas of what of Black people and other poor and oppressed people. And so we got to really, get beyond that. And somebody just said that, we're not minority. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I think that it would be much easier for us to move on. It would be much easier for us to make a change if we have that power in our hands. If we are putting in the power back into the hands of these people, if we're trying to train these coppers and we're paying for it with taxpayers' money and money from BLM and all this stuff, if we are still using all of our resources to try and change, a piece of doo-doo is a piece of doo-doo. You're not going to change it. It is what it is, right? So if we are still putting ourselves in a position where we have to ask these people to change, it's not going to happen. That's what I'm trying to say. So what I'm trying to say is, if we just subtract that, that piece out of the equation, if we take away the racists altogether, take them away, right? We won't have to, we can take all those resources that we use, right, in order to keep us safe from the police, which is not working, of course. None of it is working, by the way. And getting the right people into office. I think, I think we had Obama in office at one point. He didn't do a lot for us. However, we still got him into office, and BLM didn't exist at that time. So I'm not sure how much BLM can actually attribute, how much we can attribute their impact on on the state of politics in the United States at this present moment. However, I think that if we put ourselves in a position where it doesn't matter, do you know? Let me say something.
Absolutely.
Pakistani, really, there's a large Pakistani community in the UK.
In
They
Brooklyn,
never
yeah.
vote. So a lot of them are born in the UK. They don't vote. They're like, they don't care. They don't care. It doesn't matter. Put someone in. For them, it doesn't matter. What happens in Pakistan, that matters. That matters a lot. That matters a lot. What happens back over here? They're like, why am I voting for? Why am I voting? I am only here to make money. So in America, if a Pakistani is in America, they're there to make money. They don't have the Star-Spangled Banner, flying from their houses and stuff. They care about Pakistan, and they're quite low key about it as well. They don't go around telling people Pakistan is what's most important. They're like the Israelis, those people who hold dual Israeli citizenship. A lot of them care a lot about Israel, but America, they're like, a lot of them believe that Israel should be getting whatever they can out of the United States of America, and that's it. Israel is what matters. America is a payday. It's weapons. We get free weapons from them, all that sort of thing. So we should be the same way. We should be acting the exact same way and taking that same framework that the other minorities, other nationalities are using, and saying to ourselves, okay, this is us. Okay, we will divest. Okay, we won't spend our money buying expensive jewelry and whatever from whoever. There is no way, I'm going to tell you this now, there is no way that that somebody who is Jewish will go and spend a lot of money with somebody who is not Jewish. For example, we have a football team in London called Tottenham Hotspur, right?
Yes.
It's a football team in London. It's a Jewish team. It's a Jewish-owned, ran. Everything about it is Jewish. 100%.
I didn't know that.
Most of the fans are Jewish. 100% hardcore.
Most of the fans are Jewish.
And
okay.
most of the fans are Jewish. You will see Hasidic fans, I swear, with the hats on, curly hair, in the fan. They're hardcore like that. And
that's deep.
Across the water, they have another team in Holland, right, in Amsterdam, called Ajax. Amsterdam.
I think I heard it there.
And yeah, that's like their feeder team. They spend a lot of money. Tottenham Hotspur will buy big players from Ajax only. And it's not because it's an accident, it's because Ajax is wholly Jewish owned. No ifs, no ands, no buts. It's a Jewish team, right? These two teams only buy from each other. That's it. So even when it comes to things like that, or when you see these big tech companies like oh my gosh, who owns Facebook, right?
Mark Zuckerberg,
Jewish, right?
Butthole,
He's Jewish. Mark Zuckerberg is Jewish, right? He didn't become one of the richest men in the world on accident. It was by design, because there were other websites just like Facebook out there. If you remember, there was oh goodness, give me a website that was just like Facebook.
MySpace, Black Planet, even
MySpace. You remember that?
Yes.
You know that they preceded Facebook. These websites, they had bigger backing as well. And the people with the money, they threw all that money into the website that was owned by a Jewish man. That's not an accident. They keep it within their own, they keep it within their own community, And there is no two ways about it. They don't even have to think about it. They don't think about it. And
Right.
okay, so we need to adapt. We need to adopt that way of thinking where we don't even think about where we are going to go and eat in a restaurant. I've got a Kurdish friend. He's from Kurdistan, right? Iraq, northwestern Iraq.
Yeah, the court.
And I used to travel a lot with him. He's traveled around the world with him. Okay, he would never eat anywhere else other than in a Kurdish restaurant. He would never go to a shop unless it was Kurdish owned. And I never spoke to him about this. He just did it automatically. I'm going to that shop. And he would find these places and make sure that it was Kurdish owned. We don't do that with our children. We don't bring them up to say, okay, listen, I am going to, children learn by what they see from their parents. So if I'm a parent and I'm taking my child to all these white-owned stores and Jewish-owned stores and Indian-owned stores, guess what my child's going to do when he grows up?
Right.
We need to focus on that. We shouldn't mind traveling another 3 miles away from a shop, which is just around the corner from us. We travel another 10, 15 minutes in order to get to a shop that's owned by an African American, because it's African American. Right. We shouldn't even think about that. We should just go there.
Right.
But we don't do that. We're too focused on other cultures, and we need to be, you understand?
African,
it's difficult. I know it's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing for us to do, because in general, we don't have that, because of Africa, right? Africa's been broken up.
Right. Let me
that's another thing I want to go into.
That's something maybe we should definitely cover again. Let me tell you something. Let me interject.
We should be doing what all these other nationalities and cultures are doing.
Right. And somebody is saying about how we've been indoctrinated, or I would say colonized in the mind. It's interesting because, I'm against the Asians getting attacked, on the one hand, because a lot of that is fed by rhetoric that came from Trump. And a lot of these attackers, at least in New York, are mentally ill. And they didn't do anything when the Asians killed Latasha Harlins in LA. They didn't do anything when the Africans were getting kicked out of China. I'm talking about the black folks that attack Asians. Mm-hmm. They weren't doing that. But after Trump called it the Asian virus, so Chinese virus, and a lot of the Asian hate came from that. But let me say this. While I don't support those attacks, I'd never go to their businesses, because you would never see an Asian person in a black-owned or African-owned restaurant. These Asian people that can live all the way in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. They will go to Chinatown or Koreatown or the Korean areas in Manhattan, and then ride the train 30, 45 minutes to go back, to buy groceries in there that's owned by them, and then take it back to their own communities. And so this whole immigrant mentality that they have is something that we should do. But one of the reasons why they do that as well is because they haven't been here hundreds of years, and they haven't been so indoctrinated in terms of feeling that they're Americans, or that they're British, or that they're these other things. They look at their homeland first. Even the movie, remember the movie Godfather? I think there was a scene where Sonny told the Al Pacino character that this is not your country. He told him he was an idiot for going to war for this country. He said, this is not your country. And I think that we have to get to that point. One other thing I want to say, a couple of the other quick things I want to say is, a lot of black folks are saying and talking about Biden and stuff like that. Here's one thing, but a lot of these same black folks have gotten a stimulus check. Did you spend that stimulus check on black-owned businesses? Did you apply and get a PPP loan that you open your own businesses or supporting other black businesses? That's what I'm saying. That whole mentality has to change. If they're going to give us this or we're going to fight for this, we should use it for us. And so, and
Yeah.
recirculate it for that. And you said one more thing that's important that people don't think about when it comes to police. And I know I'm covering a lot right now. But here's the thing. We need protection in our community. There are other
Exactly.
black people. There are other black people that attack black people. But we can't depend on the cops to come protect us, because if we call them, we're the ones that usually get jammed up or shot or brutalized or taken to jail or questioned. So we need to also have a force where we're protected in our community. And we should not be paying these officers money to not even do their job. They don't even protect us in our own community. The best a cop can do is be a deterrent to other crimes that are happening around us. I live in the South Bronx. You know about the South Bronx. In the hood, and we don't have any protection in our own community. So that's the other end that people don't talk about. Yes, we need to I don't want to say get rid of the police, but we need to have security in our community. So really, it's just we have to take total control of our community. But first, we got to break down the doors of this. Somebody said Western indoctrination or colonization. And I just feel that I don't want to say too many. There is just too many of us that just buy into this notion of white supremacy and don't even realize that, or don't support us. We don't even think about going to a black businesses. We'll go on Amazon, you know what I'm saying? We'll go to Walmart, we'll go to Walgreens, we'll go to these big grocery stores when we have black owned food trucks or food market or food stands right in our own community. And I want to say that if we can't find a black owned business, maybe a black owned, maybe a brown owned business, or at least a business that hires black people and has fair workers and labor standards, because sometimes there's not always black businesses in our community, but we should have some standards before we take our money over to them. But this mentality is what we have to really break down and change. So as much as I understand the system is at fault, it's our own thinking that has to change. And I'm sorry, I hate to say this, but I feel like a lot of people in our generation and some that's coming up behind us, they have so much ingrained in their mind, they're not going to change. Not going to change their mentality. So we have to really start with the young people that's coming up to get them to rethink and not just come out when a black person gets killed, not just come out and march. I'm not against marching, against organizing. I think they've done great things, but we got to start making black life matters. Black respect matters. And what I really love about your channel, you make integrity matter. Integrity matters. We see all these scammers in the diaspora doing things on the continent and even bringing it from America. We need to make integrity matters, and that has to start, and character matters. So that has to start at a young age. So how do we create the village mentality that we need? I guess that's a question to you and other people that are watching. How do we create this village mentality that we kind of used to have? How do we bring that back? Yeah. I'm done.
Yeah. That's really
No, I'm done.
important. It is really important, because if we have that village mentality, then we won't need to worry about policing and all that sort of stuff. I don't think Koreatown has the police swarming over it because they're worried about other Koreans inside there. They don't have that problem, okay? Because they've financially empowered themselves, okay? But it's funny you should say that, actually, because I know that you do a lot about when it comes to dating, getting the right woman, finding the right woman as a man. I think having that village mentality, once again, will put us in a position where it will make our children think twice about who they deal with, who they get with, who they procreate with, that sort of thing. It will help out so much. I know so many of my friends back in the UK, in the Indian community, right? Indian community. You can't just walk around with anyone. You can't even walk around with another Indian girl. You can't do that. You need a chaperone. You need somebody else there with you. And it's just as simple, because if that girl that you're with, if that girl's family member sees you or sees her with another Indian, just any Indian boy, it doesn't matter, all hell's going to break loose. They're culturally, that thing matters. It matters to them. They make sure that they bring up their children. I hate to say this, but with fear. They have fear inside them, and they don't want those children. Those children are under control directly, and they do as they're told. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it starts with teaching our children. But you know, it's going to be difficult, Sumumba, and I'm not even sure where we are going to start. I thought that we could all just go back to Africa and just, you know, have our children live and grow up in Africa and not have to worry about them even being a black child. Because once again, if those children grow up in Africa, they're just children, that's all, right? When they grow up here in the West, they're black children. So I still believe we need to start thinking about when are we going to be able to just turn around and say, do you know what, we've had enough. That's it now. No, that's it. We're separating from you from here on. We can't work with you. You're not changing. It's been 400 years. Let's call it quits and just move on. When is that going to happen? When do you think, Sumumba, I'm going to ask you this. When do you think we should give up on them? It's a harsh question. When do you think we should give up on everybody else and just say, okay, we've had enough. It's not going to change. How long do you reckon we should wait? Another 5 years, 10 years, 50 years?
Well, we both, you know, and most people watching this know that it has to change yesterday. But here we go. Let's go back to Black Lives Matter. Let's go back to the movement we see in the streets. The emphasis of that movement and any other mass movement has to be on the re-education of our people, which means that we have to make the struggle about control of our educational institutions. That means the emphasis should be on not only African and Black history studies in classes, but we also need to be teaching about character development, integrity, relationship literacy.
Mm-hmm.
They will teach you how to put a condom on and how to have damn near how to have sex in schools, but they won't teach you how to have a relationship or how to develop interpersonal relationships. All the while, we have all of this dysfunction in our own homes, where sometimes we don't see a father, or sometimes when we do see a mother and a father, they're not in a healthy relationship. So that extends outward. And then we make jokes and we make videos and stuff like that about the dysfunction in our relationships. I've been looking at a lot of these YouTube videos of these people out of in LA, and they're always making kind of jokes and games about relationship dysfunction. And one of the most important things in our lives are relationships. For women, they could be life, it can mean life or death, you know, but we don't talk about that. We don't talk about we'll talk about financial literacy, which is important. We need to talk about relationship literacy. We need to talk about politics. In terms of politics, really is concentrated economics. We got to stop believing in the Democrats and Republicans and take what we can when it's off and demand what we can. We all need health care. We all need a stimulus check. We all need, if we have a business, some funding for that until we get the reparations that we deserve. But we can't just sit around and wait. So the emphasis of Black Lives Matter really needs to be about the re-education of our people. And that has to start on a local basis. And hopefully it can become a movement, a mass movement. I will say this about Black Lives in New York City, because it evolved from like one thing to another. They did start having an emphasis on making Black history mandatory in high school, in the schools. I'm not sure what that is in terms of how far along they got. But I feel like that simple thing right there can start to change for us to start thinking that way. And we got to understand there's a lot of us that are not going to be on board. Even Marcus Garvey said it years ago. He doesn't want to take everybody back to Africa with him because some of us are just will be useless. And we also, as you know, in Africa, that whole system needs to change. Their whole colonial, but they still wear those robes and those wigs in some of those places that were based on the European system of justice. You know, their educational system needs to change. They should take advice from what Malcolm X said in terms of how we see each other, and Kwame
Hmm.
Nkrumah and others. We got a lot of colonized thinking Africans as well. You know, we got a lot of our people, we call ourselves Muslim or Hebrew, and we're all indigenous. But at the end of the day, we are African people,
Hmm.
people of African descent. And it's a beautiful thing. We come from different places. You see, I'm representing uh, Ivory Coast because it's part of the diaspora. Now, as you know, some of you know I've done my DNA and it says that I come from Cameroon. That's cool, but the whole of Africa belongs to us, and we got to find a way to realize, and we got to find a way to get back to Wakanda, even if not physically but mentally, to share this maroon mentality, this mentality
Hmm. I
that
see
we have
that.
enough resources in our own community to make the changes that we need to make. We need to teach people about your homie.
That's nice.
What was her name? Nandi? Was it Nandi from Jamaica that fought the British? She was a leader from Ghana. She was from the Jamaican islands, and she was part of the Maroon community. Do we know
Hmm.
about her? Do we know about Harriet Tubman? But do we know about her? Do we know about Queen Nzinga? Do we know about the African Seminoles that fought with the Seminoles in the United States and fought them to a standstill and never signed a peace treaty with the United States
Uh,
government? Do we know about them in
yeah.
Florida? No, we don't know. So it's very, very important that we
Yeah.
the young people need to be
Yeah.
re-educated.
Yeah.
And
Which
also, let me say this:
and that's the
it, it-
thing.
yeah, these same tropes. It's not the man. It's not as much about the mass media that's doing all this now. It's the power of social media. We have to really
I
evolve
could
our
tell you
understanding.
this. I could tell you
Yeah,
this. My
go ahead. We have a delay, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
I can tell you this. My son knows about my kids. It's all right. Mm-hmm. It's all right. No, I was listening to you. We do have a delay. I'm gonna say what I was just about to say.
Okay.
Yeah, my children, when they went to school, they came back home. They started to talk to me about Sir Walter Raleigh. I don't know if you know who Sir Walter Raleigh
Yes,
is, but
that's the man that laid his.
he's
Yeah.
like the British version, I would say. He was a rogue sort of warrior sort of guy, a real guy. He's like he's basically one of the men who got he started the a lot of he started a lot of the Jamaicans, because a lot of the Jamaicans were pirates, right? A lot of the Jamaicans were pirates, and what he did was he um, spoke to the Jamaicans and said, "Hey, we need help in these seas. We need to get rid of these Spanish, right? We need
Yeah.
because the Spanish at the time were making a lot of money through going to South America and taking gold from South America and taking it back to Spain. And the British didn't like that. And so Walter Raleigh was sent to the Caribbean, and he said to the Jamaicans, and a lot of them were former slaves, he said, listen, you know, we'll give you some of the best equipment. Here's the best ships. Here's the best weapons. We need you to go after these Spanish. Go do whatever you want. You can take whatever you want. Just make sure they don't get past. Don't get past. I mean, this is you got to remember as well. The Spanish were going back to Europe, and they were going using the current as well. So they had to swing by right past Jamaica, and Jamaica was perfectly positioned. So they would just go out in these ships and take them out. So my children were taught about this guy, this Sir Walter Raleigh, but they
Right.
know, and I suppose this is partly my fault, but at the time, we're talking years ago when my son was talking to me about this, yeah, that long ago. At the time, I didn't really know much about my history and about my background. There wasn't even internet at that time. And okay, we had books, but I never used to go to the library. I was a young father, and I was taking care of my son and family, and I was working 12 hours a day. So I wasn't really empowered. I didn't really have that information to go out and find out, where my dad came from, what part, was he part of which tribe, where did my mum come from, and that sort of thing. I wasn't in that situation to tell him this, but we were living in the UK, and we're not living far away from Stratford, which is where Shakespeare came from. So he knows about Shakespeare. He knows how many wives Henry VIII had. He knows all that stuff at the top of his head. And this is primarily because we weren't empowered at the time. My younger children are different. They know a lot more than what my older children know. Okay, so my youngest know about these African queens, about the warriors, the ones who rebelled. They know not to listen to the media. I told my son at one point that he should stop listening to his history teacher, because his history teacher tried to tell us. My last name is Gaelic, right? I'm clearly not Welsh, right? I'm not Welsh, I'm not Scottish, but I've got a Gaelic last name. And I told my son the reason why we have Gaelic last name. It's essentially because the area, the plantation in which we were slaves in Jamaica was named after this famous Welsh person who owned so-and-so slaves. So, it's likely that is where our name came from. And he told his teacher this, and his teacher was like, no, absolute rubbish. White guy, young white guy as well, clearly didn't have any idea. And I had to draw him up about it in front of my son and tell him, what did you mean by that? I remember this is a very long time ago. I had to speak to some white teachers, because clearly they didn't understand the situation of a child who was not white being brought up in the same system. And they were, a lot of these teachers in the UK are young as well themselves. What are they supposed to know? How are they supposed to teach a child about African history? They're not going to be able to do that. It's important that we learn it as parents. Should be obligatory for us as parents to learn about our history, about our customs, our culture. We should live our culture as well, and bring our children up, especially within the best part of it. Because Jamaican culture is like African American culture. It's like every culture. It's not all good. It's not all positive. There are parts of our culture that needs improving. Yeah, and so hopefully bringing those children up using only the positive side of our cultures, so they feel home somewhere else. They don't have to feel home in England. They can feel home when they get back to the African continent, or when they go to Jamaica. So they don't feel like, when they're in a situation when they are under duress from white people, from other white children. They shouldn't have to care about what those white children think, what their opinion is. They should not care about this as much as they do. Now they get hurt when they hear it, because they feel, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know you like that. It shouldn't be that way. We need to change. And it's important for all you guys here who are listening. It's important for you. I know a lot of you guys are a little older. You're about my age, probably in your 40s, mid 40s, early 50s. A lot of you guys, you still can make a difference, because now, you know what you know. You can still teach your grandchildren about these types of things, or your great grandchildren. You know, a lot of you are in a situation where you believe that the school is going to teach them everything they need to know, but it's the wrong way to go. It really is. This education in the West is a mess. It really is a total mess. We go into education essentially to teach us how to be workers, obedient workers, and that's it. We're not taught how to answer back because the people who are paying for your education, they don't want you to answer back. They don't want you to ask questions. They want you to do what they tell you to do. That's it. So homeschooling, that's another thing we can do. Homeschooling. I don't know any Muslim child, actually no, I know a couple, but most Muslim children that I know back in the UK go to Muslim schools in the UK. Their parents would never send them to a secular school, ever. Never send them to a public school. They send their Muslim children to a Muslim school. End of story. Okay? So they have this. They're brought up without even having to think about worrying about what other people and what other cultures think. It's beautiful. It's like they're free. It is like they are free. They are free of worrying about what other people think about them. They don't care. What other people think is totally irrelevant. That's where I think we need to get to. I don't, and once again, I don't think we should, I don't think we should get to the point in which Malcolm X is saying completely separate. We live in an inclusive world now, and that's not going to be possible, but we should get to a point in which we are at least living like the Koreans are living, or like the Chinese are living in the United States, or like the Indians are living in the UK, just where we take care of one another. I mean, we even do that in the UK. We do it in the UK. A lot of black communities do that in the UK. But it's a tiny community in comparison to the African American community in the United States, where it's a lot more fragmented. It's
right.
We have a tight community in the UK because it's small. So yeah, I think we need to start focusing on that at least. I'm aware that we're coming off what we were supposed to be talking about. Okay.
No, but
and
you're right.
I wanted to just give before I ask you this question, I wanted to ask you a question. I wanted to quickly go on. I wanted to say something real quickly. Okay, I know we have a delay, but I'm going to say something real quickly. I think that I know some people are going to castrate me for saying this, but I don't think it's a bad thing if these ladies who are the founders of BLM, if they are spending this money on themselves. I would prefer them to spend the money on themselves than to pay for police training. Guaranteed. I would definitely prefer that. I don't think any of this money should be going to support or change the minds of imbeciles. These people are degenerates. I don't think we should be putting money into these people's hands and trying to change, give them special training. They don't need training. They need to leave our communities. End of story. We don't need them in our communities. We should have at least specially trained black police officers in black communities. We shouldn't have any white police officers in those communities. We should ban them from those communities because clearly they can't do their jobs without being scared of a black man having a gun or something like that, because that's what's happening, right?
Yes.
They don't see you as another person. They see you as an automatic threat because of the color of your skin. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say that out real quickly. You didn't answer, but I remember. Sorry.
I was just gonna say you can also take away their pensions, put that over them, the qualified immunity. These people that the officers that kill black people, they can quit and they'll still get their pensions. You take away that aspect of it. I'm not saying the police brutality is gonna end but that'll definitely help. And the qualified immunity and this blue wall of silence, until we can get to this point where we can secure our own community, start taking away some of that, you'll see some of that stuff starting to change. That's one thing. Another really important thing is for us to realize that as long as we're depending on them to be accountable and to change, it's not gonna happen. And that's the end of that. I want to say, yeah, okay, back to the region. Homeschooling, where we can do it and we can afford to do it, we should definitely do it. But we should also be prepared with the knowledge of not only what it means to be a teacher, but also to have the knowledge of self to teach our young people. But where we can't, it's not feasible for all of us to homeschool our children. It's just not. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we should not have control over the schools in our own community and make sure that that what's being taught in school is right. So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So that's the long and short. Yeah, I can still hear you. I just can't see you.
Okay. I don't know why that is the case. Okay then.
I don't know if the lighting, and I had to move because it started raining on me. That's why I moved around.
Oh, is it raining over there?
It started a little bit. I don't know if it still is, but I'm underneath something now, so it's all good. It was light rain. I don't even know if it is now.
I'm not going to keep you for long. You know.
Oh yeah,
you need to send.
Yeah, let me just say this too, because you said we're not veering off course in terms of what we're talking about. Here's the main issue with Black Lives Matter. Like the focus is in the wrong place, I feel. Yes, we should have yes, all those things about the police are true. But the emphasis that you're talking about, us getting this united mentality, this monolithic mentality, this immigrant mentality, whatever you want to call it, that should be more of the focus of Black Lives Matter. I'm not against what they're trying to do with voting, because whatever helps can help. If you can get some money out of the system, fine. But at the end of the day, what we have to do is change the minds and mentality of our own people. We cannot depend on whites to do that and others to do that. For those whites that are sincere and that want to help, fine. I don't have a problem with them. But at the end of the day, those in power are not going to change because they know that the police are not here to protect or serve us. They're really to protect property and those white communities. But at the end of the day, we still need our own security. We do need security in our own community. So we have to address that aspect as well. I'm not sure if you've heard of this group called the NFA Coalition. They're a group, non-effing around coalition. They're like a militia. NFA is not effing around coalition. I think
I think I have heard of them.
They're an armed group, and they make sure they're better than Antifa, making sure that these right-wing militias and all these other white nationalists, when they come out, that they don't attack us. I think we need, Malcolm X was right, and Huey P. Newman was right. We need to also learn about self-defense, how to defend ourselves, not just against the police, but just to secure our own community. We have a big problem in America as it relates to white supremacists and white nationalists. They do really want to start a race war. Go ahead. I'm talking too much. Go ahead. I'm done.
Hello, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I couldn't hear you. It's all right. I can hear you now, though. I forgot what I was about to say, but man, I just truly believe that. I was going to ask you a question, actually. I was going to ask you, can we trust Black Lives Matter anymore? I mean, when do we get to a stage when we say, listen, they're going to focus more on the needs of the LGBTQ community. They're going to focus on that clearly. They're going to align themselves with blue chip corporations and try and get into the mainstream. And once they're in the mainstream, they have to start being careful. They need to start treading carefully. And all of a sudden, once that money starts flowing in, they get intoxicated by it. I can just see it happening right now. There used to be a grassroots, you know, balls to the wall, you know, hardcore organization that could not be bought, and all of a sudden now it just seems as if they can be bought. How can we trust them, and should we be focused on perhaps building a new organization and letting them do whatever they need to do, an organization that is more dedicated to us?
Right. I think we should trust them for what they do. Their emphasis is on police brutality and accountability. They can do that. That's fine. Same thing with the Black Futures Lab, which is Alicia Garza, one of the founders of BLM. She focuses on voting. We can probably trust her with that. But at the end of the day, that's not the total solution. The police aren't the only problem in our community. They are a big problem because it's life or death with them. But to me, they're not the main problem in our community. The main problem is we don't have control over our community. That's the main problem. So I think we can trust them to do what they do. They put a lot on the line. They do a lot of, I feel like, good work. And I think that even with the Black LGBTQ community, they also, they're also under attack as well. And I'll be honest with you, some of the greatest organizers I worked with came from the LGBTQ community, particularly Black trans people. They are some of the fiercest fighters out there. But at the end of the day, you're right. Some of these LGBTQ people in BLM will focus on, or they'll try to include them along in our struggle or put them at the forefront, which I feel is a tactical mistake, because LGBTQ people did not build America. Maybe there was a few LGBTQ people that were slaves or whatever and brought from Africa because, it existed in Africa before we even got here. But at the end of the day, they didn't build America. They weren't the ones exploited for labor. The majority of our people were. So I think we can trust them to do what they do, but they're just one aspect of our struggle and not even the main aspect of our struggle. Same thing with people that do like the Stacey Abrams with the voting. I think they're doing a great job on voting. I'm glad what happened in Georgia. But that's just part of the struggle. That's just one end game. At the end of the day, we need a Black power movement that focuses on Black power or Black control of our communities, and one that seeks to unite us as well. And one thing we didn't talk about that we probably should have talked about that you reminded me of from you being from Jamaica or Jamaican descent is Haiti. The example of Haiti. In Haiti being the first nation that fought off the French and united the whole island at one point, and they were successful with their revolution in 1804. And guess what they used the day before they revolted? They used religion. They uses the Boudin, an African religion, actually to hype the people up and get the people in a state and a trance to fight off and kick Napoleon's butt off of Haiti. And that's why you have half of America was given up that's why he gave up the French that owned like half of America at one point. He had to change his resources to fight Haiti and in other places because of the Haitian Revolution. So that's something that we also need to really talk about as well. The example of Haiti and those African people that fought back. From Lumumba, to the Maroons, to the Cherokee, to the Black Cherokees and others. So we need to talk about those examples. Also learn from the 60s. I would just implore everybody to Google or YouTube Ocean Hill-Brownsville project of 1967, 68, when the Black community took control of the Black school system. And guess what? They were funded by a grant from the Ford Foundation, $20 million. And they made it work. This is why I say, if we take money from white people, we use it for what we need to use it for. This was a grant. They didn't have to pay it back. The people that shut down the Ocean Hill-Brownsville project was the white-led UFT, United Federation of Teachers Union, that said that we were racist and that we were firing and hiring people based on race. When in actuality, the community was firing those racist teachers and those that refused to support a Black curriculum. So, it's just important for us to know our history. I've been posting on this thread as well, narrative, with the link. I'll post it again for us to go there, for us to get the knowledge. Another good thing that we can learn from our past is Eyes on the Prize, part 1 and 2, Eyes on the Prize, which is will also teach us about some of the things that we did before that worked. There's some things that have worked for us, and we need to take those lessons and apply them to today. But we also must change understand that social media and how to use social media in the right way. Anyway, somebody just said something about disaster capitalism with all these organizations. I think the problem with capitalism is capitalism was born off of our enslavement and the killing of Native American people. The second largest slave port in North America was Wall Street at one point. So I think we need a mix. I'm more of a socialistic person. I think you are too, UN. We need a mix of both. And disaster capitalism, where profit is more important than people, also plays a really big role in our oppression. And the police, what's happening with the police and education and all the rest of that. So what I'm trying to say is the answers are already there. We just got to get back to it. But we also have to be realistic and realize that we didn't just get off the boat. We didn't just come here voluntarily like some of these other groups. And we've been here for much longer. And so we have to fight this cultural and Western indoctrination and colonization in our minds. I think that's really a big, big problem. So, we just got to keep speaking the truth. And I think what you do with exposing some of these Africans in the diaspora that go to Africa and exploit other Africans and exploit African Americans and Afro-Europeans and all the rest of that, Black people throughout the diaspora, we got to keep doing that as well and look for positive examples.
I'm going to tell you this, Sumumba. It's so sad that I have I have a lot of videos that I've got to do. It's sad that I'm able to make a video every single day with one of them on it. Every single day. I've got a backlog right now. And so it's sad to be in a position where I'm telling people about these people who look like us, but don't think like us. They literally have no remorse with taking your life savings that you have grafted for, that you've worked for your entire life. They have there is no feelings towards you. They'll just take that money and use it for themselves happily, and then they'll boast about it. It's almost like a sickness. So yeah, it's sad. It's sad sometimes, and I wish I didn't have to do it, but it's I'm trying to do my best just to, if I can just save somebody's life savings, just one person's, it'll be worth everything that I'm doing now. It's difficult for us in the diaspora as it is. Wow, and then we end up robbing each other as well for a percentage. Nah, it's not a good situation, not at all. Let me ask you about Patrisse specifically. I mean, did you ever meet her?
I never met her. I was supposed to meet her because I was speaking on a panel at one point on racism with Tim Weiss. I don't know if you ever heard of Tim Weiss. He's a white man that actually speaks on racism within the white community. I don't want to say anti-racist because that's kind of like a funny word, but he just kind of speaks the truth, like the lady that did the blue-eye, brown-eye test, Jane, whatever. But I never met her. She didn't show up. She got paid to speak in speaking engagement, but she didn't show up. Her and Alicia didn't show up. And anyway, they said something at the next day that it was a scheduling mishap. And they got paid for it, and they got an award, and they didn't even show up. So I never met her, but I do know people that know her, and she was one of the main ones that was getting money early, because she was the main one on television, talking about Black Lives Matter. She was one of the leaders. So yeah. That's the long.
What are they getting money for?
What's that?
What are they getting paid for? What I mean, let me ask you this question: Is Black Lives Matter in New York? Is it a non-profit organization? What are you registered as there? Are you a limited liability? What?
I think what I know is that some of the there's different chapters of Black Lives Matter, and some have affiliated as nonprofit. and are incorporated. But to my understanding, I don't believe that Black Lives Matter is a LLC or is incorporated. A lot of times they'll meet in certain places and then they'll just do an action or activity after one of us gets killed. So I think some do have LLC status, some have nonprofit status, but as a organization, I don't believe that they do. Now, there's 3 different branches of Black Lives Matter as well. There's Black Futures Lab, which is Elisa Garza, which focuses on voting. Now, they may be nonprofit. There's also I think Movement for Black Lives, and they actually have pretty legit demands as well. I don't think that they are nonprofit either. And then you have the Black Lives Formal. So that might be something that you want to look at. But really, the leaders get money based on media appearances or book deals, speaking engagements, even live streaming. You can get paid off live streaming as well. But in terms of people just sending them, and some people send them money because some of them have GoFundMe and they have Patreon and all the rest of that. That's how they make their money. But anyway, you know how the white society will see someone as a leader and then try to fund him or her. They tried to do the same thing with Malcolm X. I think they offered him $3 million at one point to kind of either go against King or just tone it down. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm posting a link to Eyes on the Prize. So that's how they get paid for the most part. I mean, now I'm not saying that George Soros hasn't sent them millions. He may have. Ben and Jerry's may have sent them money like that. And I don't have a problem with them getting paid, but if they have $2 or $3 million properties and they're not making that money based off their own book deals or their own whatever, speaking for themselves, that's a problem. I heard about what happened with Patrisse, but I haven't really looked into it. I know that she deserves some money for the work that she's doing, but if you're buying houses in Bermuda or Nassau or wherever, you got to think that some of this is being done in the name of Black Lives Matter, and that's taking it a little bit too far.
Let me tell you, but do you know what though? Think about it. She hasn't gone out and bought Ferraris. She hasn't gone out and bought, watches, Rolexes. She's gone out and bought property, something that will accrue more money, something that will make more money, build her wealth in that sort of way. She's been very sensible with the money. Let's admit that at least, and it is her money. So clearly, I mean, I couldn't imagine her doing something silly and taking money from the Black Lives Matter movement that didn't belong to her. I believe that she didn't have to. She made enough money herself on her own, in her own terms. So that's I don't think that's the problem. I think she's done very well. But I truly believe that, I have no ill feelings towards her spending even Black Lives Matter money, or even focusing on spending Black Lives Matter money on the community, spending more of that money on the community and not spending it on the police. I'm sorry, but the police, the actual police force needs to be reformed. But I think that we could do with focusing on getting more Black police officers into the force, policing Black communities. I think that's a good way around it. And the white officers, they can police the white areas, they can police Staten Island and certain parts of Queens. They can do that. You can go ahead and do that, because at this present moment, that's what they're doing. They scutter out of Staten Island in the middle of the morning. They get into their cars, they drive to work at where did they work? What's the name of the John Jay College? So they probably drive to John Jay College, have a little training there, and then they drive to work. They drive on patrol in the Bronx. The Bronx is there where they work. They would never focus on their own place.
Where the meth is and the Percocet problem. I mean, there's a big problem in white America with the Percocet and the meth. There's a lot of crime and a lot of people are dying. There's more people dying from overdoses and stuff like that from drugs in the white community, but nobody's talking about that, or the white on white crime as well. Now, that's not to say we don't have problems in our own community.
Yeah.
We certainly do. But people coming from the outside that are already scared of us, or already hate us, or don't understand us, aren't going to help the situation, And it's not about being a good cop or a bad cop. It's about a culture, and not belonging to a culture or understanding a culture. And it's about them having power. We can't depend on them to do right. We should know that by now. Now, I think Derek Chauvin is going to get some sort of, he has to. He's going to serve some time, but he might get third degree. He might be in jail for 5-10 years. He's not going to get life. He's not going to get that. So we need to be prepared for that as well. We're not going to get justice in that case. So, I don't even watch the trial. I see what's going on. But go ahead.
Let me ask you another question.
Yes.
Right. And this is personally for me, because I don't know what this is. What is qualified immunity?
I believe qualified immunity means
I have no idea what it is, guys.
Let me look at. I knew what it meant. It means that you don't get like. Let me check right there, because I don't want to say the wrong thing, because I think it's like certain. Okay, qualified immunity is that you are free from civil lawsuits. It basically gives them the presumption of innocence. It gives them a presumption of innocence, and it gives them immunity when they kill someone, and that you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they don't deserve this qualified immunity. And I also think that it plays into an officer has 48 to 72 hours before they can be questioned about after they kill someone or injure someone. I think it's also part of that as well, because police have certain protections after they kill someone, and also they have the right to resign and still keep their pensions, which is also a big problem. So I think Black Lives Matter can be effective in that. We should support them in that, stripping away that qualified immunity, and it basically puts them above the law. Whereas if me and you killed someone, we wouldn't have the qualified immunity. So that's part of what qualified immunity means. So I think they're absolutely right in trying to get rid of that. And I think Black Lives Matter has helped them in that in some places. So you have to give them some credit on that.
Yeah. I mean, I will give them some credit. But
Sure.
I'm not.
They're not the end game. They're not the end game. They're not the revolution.
No, they're not.
They can reform some things. Well, reform gets you further than where you were before. I'm just going to say reform gets you further than where you were before. So it's not a bad thing. But revolution means change. Radical means square root. So radical revolution, changing everything from the root up, is what we need to be about. I don't think Black Lives Matter is about that. They do have their value, but that's not what they're about. So they can teach you how to organize. They can teach you how to march. They can teach you about certain things. They can maybe change some laws, which is all good, but it's not the end result that you were talking about in terms of how we change our culture, how we empower ourselves. So that is what needs to change. And there are organizations and groups that are doing that right now. But how do we get our people to feed into that mentality? How do we get our people to start thinking like they were thinking in the 60s?
Precisely.
It always takes a George Floyd or somebody getting killed for us to wake up and rise up. But what about the gentrification that's happening all around us? What about the healthcare? What about COVID that's hitting us disproportionately? I had an uncle that passed away from that. What about the poor healthcare we get? Yeah, I had an uncle. They sent him home. Him to only come back and then have to be put on a ventilator. And then once when you're on a ventilator, that's pretty much it. But this is affecting us. The healthcare is affecting us. My mother died from poor healthcare. Another uncle died from poor healthcare. We get different healthcare when we go into these hospitals. And if it wasn't for the Black nurses that's there, I think more of us would die in these hospitals. But these are things that happen every day. Food's not affordable. We're not growing our own food. All of these are issues that we need to be talking about to make Black life matter. What does that matter? So we got to really start
Yeah.
re-educating our people and getting back to this village mentality and this immigrant mentality, and that yes, we can say that we're citizens of America, and we deserve everything we get. But at the end of the day, we are people of African descent, and we got to realize that that is where our power is. Once we can get united, and that's going to start with young people, I think.
Yeah.
But it can also be us as well.
Yeah.
That's parent as
Yeah.
teachers.
Yeah, I'm starting to run out of hope for the older generation. A lot of us are stuck in our ways. It's difficult, but I think a lot of us going to Africa is part of the solution, but can exacerbate the problem in America, because once again, when we go to Africa, who's going to take care of the young ones coming up? They're going to have to fight for themselves, because it's most of the people who are thinking about going back to Africa now, the people like my age, 40s, 50s, they want to live out the rest of their lives as humans, just as people, normal people. They don't want to, retire in Boca Raton, Florida or something. They don't want to retire there because it's filled with the people that they had to battle all their lives. So, I think that a lot of people, a lot of Americans in general can mitigate all the problems that they're having, the health problems, the violence and everything else, just by leaving the United States and taking a break for a year or two, just seeing what the world has to offer. Because I think a lot of Americans believe or act as if there is no world outside of the United States. I mean, that's the place where everybody wants to go. And it is, a lot of people do want to go to the United States. A lot of people want to move there, but you don't see Europeans packing up their stuff and trying to get into the United States of America, because people in the United States, people in the Europe, believe that they have it better than people in the United States, and vice versa. Okay. A lot of people here in Europe believe that we have the perfect balance, sort of thing. There is some violence, but I never go outside worrying about violence. And I remember living in the South Bronx. I lived in the South Bronx for a while. 132nd off the Grand Concourse, South
Right.
Boogie Down. So I used to live there, and and my aunt, who was living there at the time, she never opened those curtains in our house. She never opened them. I remember this. She never opened her curtains. The house was always dark inside. Horrible. You think you gotta live this way? Is this the way you gotta live? Because you believe that you're in America and you're in the right place. Nah, man. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. But yeah, we need to open our eyes and look to other horizons and not be afraid to travel. Be like the Chinese. Don't be afraid to go to Africa and grab a piece of land and start growing something, and go back to China anytime go back to America anytime you want. That's what the Chinese do. It's not like they're going to Africa and they're like, well, I'm going to live here now for the rest of my life. They go to Africa, build up their business, and they bugger off back to China 2, 3, 4 times a year. That's it. And they're happy living that way. Moving to Africa or going to Africa regularly, like Prince Dinas Demir, it can benefit you a lot. You can live in America and still have the benefits of Africa by going there often and building your life over there, building, your immunity to racism over there, because you can build that there as well. Build your strength.
I would also say for people that believe in it or whatnot, to find your do your African ancestry. I did my African ancestry DNA. I put it in the chat, and it's a Black-owned company, and they do they check your DNA all the way. They get you all the way down to the tribe that you came from. And I come from Cameroon. Yeah, they do it from your mother's side, which I think you have more DNA from your mother. but I come from the Cameroon Bioko Island region.
Mm.
And so that's, of course, one of the first places that I want to go visit when I go back. And I know that this is true not only because I believe in science and DNA, but also because the people from the Bioko Islands were very rebellious. They were very rebellious. They sent back half of the ships, took over half of the ships that had slaves from the mainland and brought it
Yeah.
back to Africa. And I know that I have that spirit in me, you know.
Mhm.
And I'm looking as I read more about them, it's like this resembles more of my family. So I think even if you can't get to Africa immediately, try to find your ancestry, and you know that's also really good because you know knowing where you're from or what region that you're from, it's a beautiful thing, you know.
Mhm.
But now let me ask you a question right quick. With all of the problems in Africa, and you've documented some, now what are countries that are good to go to? I know you did a video about Rwanda. I like Rwanda because of the security aspect. And I have friends in Nigeria that are doing pretty well. And you know, I have some issues with Ghana because of not just because of Go Black, what he's Go Black to Africa said, but personal issues there. But like now, like which countries should we go to, which are safe? And last night I was talking to someone from I think she's from Mozambique, and she was basically saying how when you go there, you have to dress all the way down and you wear slides and don't give the appearance that you're a foreigner and all the rest of that. And I see that in different places of Africa. So when we say go back to Africa to visit, like where should we go? Or should it be based on if we do research on our DNA or whatever? And I do agree we should go back at least once a year if we don't actually repatriate. But what
Mhm.
should we do? Which country should we go visit?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think you should focus primarily on where your DNA comes from in order to find a place where to go back to, because
Okay.
you never know. It could be South Sudan or Eritrea. You don't know. It could be somewhere where
Ivory Coast.
you wouldn't
Ivory
even be allowed to go back to anyway. So I think you should focus more on what you want. So if I was 20 years old, or no, actually, if I was 20 years old, I wouldn't. But you know, if I want to make it big, if I'm looking to start off like some sort of tech business and I want to make it big, I want to be a billionaire. That's my focus. That's my goal, to make money. Then I would go to Nigeria. You know, I would
Yeah,
go
hell
to a
yeah.
place like Nigeria, and you know, if I want to live in a place where I just want to chill out for the rest of my life, I want to be safe, I want to be happy, but I want to be around my people, then you have this. I would focus more on the smaller countries like Rwanda, oh goodness, what's the Portuguese islands off the coast of the Gambia?
Um, Cape Verde, not Cape Verde.
Yeah.
Guinea-Bissau. Yeah.
Capo Verde, yeah. So like there as well, it's rough, rural, but I can live the rest of my life out there, and no one's going to bother me. You know, it's expensive there, by the way, but places like that. If you want to move to a place which is inexpensive, you have the Gambia, okay? Because the Gambia is an incredible country. I've been there a couple of times myself. Incredibly nice people. So you can always move there. So it depends on what you are looking for. If you want to start up a business, right? South
Tanzania.
Africa. Sorry?
Yeah.
South
Tanzania.
Africa. Yeah, the Gambia. But
No,
like,
Tanzania.
oh, Tanzania. Yeah. I mean, you know, I don't know much about Tanzania, if I need to be honest with you. And I haven't done a lot of research on Eastern Africa. I don't know why, but I'm the kind of person that likes to travel back and forth. So if I'm going to live in, say, Lagos, I'll definitely live in Lagos because I can easily catch a flight and go to Istanbul from Lagos. There's a direct flight, or there's a direct flight to London, or there's a direct flight to New York. I can just get places, you know. So I always keep that in mind. But you know, so I've always, and you know, if you're living in West Africa as well, it's a shorter journey. You know, it's not like you're going to be spending 18 hours on a flight or taking a change of flight when you get to wherever. You know, you don't have to do that, and you need to do that from Tanzania. There isn't many direct flights that link you up. So I wasn't thinking about that. I've still got my family here in the West, and I need to focus on making sure that it's easy for them to come and see me. Jump on a flight, 7 hours, you're there, bam. You know, I don't have to worry about that kind of thing.
I feel you.
So if that's important to you, that's important to you, that's okay. Tanzania is quite rough. It's still, you know, it's one of those countries that's still coming up, and it's a big touristic type country as well.
Great beaches. Zanzibar, great beaches. Ooh, beautiful beaches, man.
Incredible. I see the pictures. I've never been there. I've seen the pictures. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. In fact, Go Black to Africa, when he was in Kenya, I was looking at Kenya. I was like, wow. I just threw his little camera, you know, with his phone. What I was looking at, I was like, wow, I'd definitely go and live there. That place looked incredible to me. And it would be easy for me to move there because they still have a lot of the British systems there. So you understand how things would work. You know, they even drive on the same side as the United Kingdom as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I could easily get a car from the UK, send it over there. It would be an easy move for me to go to Kenya, but it's just distance. You know, I prefer to be in a place where I can get back. Kenya has good international airports as well, you know, but I just, you know, it costs an arm and a leg to fly from there, and I just prefer to be able to be closer to Europe, closer to the West, closer to my family there as well, you know. So that's what I was looking at. Zanzibar is expensive. It is Ali Jones, by the way. Zanzibar is expensive, but I think any places that attract Europeans tends to be expensive. So yeah, I'm not going to Africa to go and live around Europeans again, you know. What would be the point in moving? I might as well stay in Europe. So I would definitely go somewhere. If you're looking to break those chains and just move away from all Europeans, you know, be in a situation where you're not being subjugated once again by the same people looking at you, giving you the little eye, then I would move to a place where there is very few natural resources, for one, where there is very few tourists going there. Think about moving out somewhere where there is no tourism. You know, that would make me happy. I'm the kind of person that could live on an island somewhere by myself, happy. Some people are afraid of being on their own. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah,
I like my solitude.
Yeah, we saw you visiting. What were you, France, and continually getting harassed. You was on. I think you were on your own.
Let me tell you something. I didn't tell anybody this. I'm going to tell everybody this now. So I was in Marseille, but I'd flown back from, oh my gosh, Mauritania. I was in Africa.
Okay.
I was in Africa. Yeah. So I'd gone to Mauritania. I don't understand how they allowed me on the plane.
Why is that?
I went to Mauritania, I went there I wanted to make a documentary about the West Africans making their way up to Europe using that sort of route. They go through the Sahara Desert, through Mauritania, up into Morocco and up to Spain. So I wanted to speak with them about that. And I landed and they were like, oh, this is a British passport. You can't come here with that. You know, so they turned me away whilst I was at the airport. I had to go and I had to stay inside the airport, wait until the next day, and then take a next flight back to France. Yeah, so it was a nightmare. But yeah, I had a lot of hassle when I got back to the airport to France, and then I had to travel. I think I traveled to Leaning Tower of Pizza. I went to Portofino, the Amalfi Coast. yeah, and to Rome as well. And then I literally took the train everywhere. I just didn't
Yeah,
even
I saw
bother
that
to take a flight because it's too much for nightmare. It's so much for nightmare to travel right now. It's
because
crazy.
of COVID and stuff.
It's
Yeah,
so sad. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's the COVID stuff. Are you planning to go away this year?
Um, I was planning to, but the whole COVID thing now, and I hear it's getting worse in parts of England. I mean, of Europe. But technically, yes, I do still plan to get to Africa sometime this year, and most likely somewhere in Europe. Probably towards the summer or towards the end of summer. I'm looking at, and I was thinking about Florida, but it's so crazy down there with a lot of things. So I may, for now, be going just to California and Missouri, places where I'm from. But yeah, so
Okay.
when I do get to there, I would like to get to the Bioko Islands, and I would like to say Cameroon, but it's so unstable right now. So, but I'm looking at Bioko Islands, Cameroon, and possibly Nigeria at this point. You know, there are some other
Okay.
places. I do have a connect in Zanzibar, Tanzania, a brother that does safaris, and he also visits, I think, the Maasai tribe that's in Tanzania and Kenya, and I think
Ah,
he does stuff on Zanzibar as well. So I did put my email down if anybody's interested. A brother named George. So I'm just
please
really
do
taken.
that.
I'm
Please
taken
do
by
that.
their beaches. Safari is okay, but I see the white sands and the white water, and I really want to get there to Zanzibar now. I really do.
That's fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You do that. You do that. Listen, I'm coming up to 2 hours now, so I'm just going to wrap this up right now.
Okay.
Guys, I wanted to thank everybody for watching, by the way, first. And I wanted to thank you, Sumumba, for coming on and talking to us about BLM once again. I know you had to stay out there in the cold. It's not exactly, it doesn't look like beautiful weather over there at this present moment.
Nah, it's
So,
okay. Yeah.
guys, I want to thank you for the super chat. Somebody came on and gave me a super chat, but I didn't say thank you. I was too busy talking. So thank you for the super chat. And do you wanted to put something in the comment section, don't you? Sumumba, you wanted to put a link in the comment section or something?
Oh yeah. Well, I think I already have, but I'll put another one. Just basically, you can type in my name. I just put my link to my page, my channel, and I will be streaming more and doing more vlogs and stuff like that. So just come check me out. Every morning I do an inspirational saying and a hashtag Dear Black People and Mornings with Moomba every morning. And I will be doing live streams on dating and relationships starting Friday. And then Tuesday, I'll be talking about more cultural stuff, the things that's happening in the diaspora in the country. And I may be doing some streams on Saturday as well. I'm able to now work a little bit more online as a result of
Perfect.
a little bit of money coming in. So stay tuned to
Good,
my
good.
channel. And we're looking
Yeah,
forward
yeah.
to more of your exposés and content. And I'm sorry you have so much out there, but I'm hoping some of these people will
I got
redeem
something coming
themselves.
up tomorrow.
Oh
Tomorrow I've got a
Lord.
video coming up. It's yeah, you'll see for yourself.
Okay.
You'll see for yourself. Keep tuned. So guys, thank you. Keep tuned to Sumumba once again, and yeah, you can keep tuned. Tomorrow I'll have another video coming up as well. So keep your eyes open for it. Okay. So guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribe as well. Subscribe to Sumumba too if you go to his site, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay. Take care, guys. Thank you for coming.
No problem.
Take care.
Peace.
Ciao. Ciao. Ciao.
Peace.